Hey everyone, Jason here from Off the Beaten Path. Thanks for tuning into another one of our videos. Today we're heading into the Stanley Forest, which sits just between Yakandanda and Stanley, or perhaps Beechworth is more familiar to most of you. It's a great little patch, local forest, only about 30-40 minutes drive from home, and exploring some of the tracks that I've never been down before. Heading out today with Sam in his MUX. He's been driving the tracks in this forest for well over 10 years, so he's got some exciting places to show me, and should be a bit of a test out today. I think we're going to do some more technical tracks today, which will be great. So starting off pretty easy. Most of the tracks in the Stanley Forest are pretty easy going, but if you know where to look, there's some pretty challenging ones as well, and I think we might find some of those today. Nice easy start though. Really good weather considering it's winter. So the main track that we're heading towards today is what's known locally as the Long Tom bypass track. So Long Tom is a track that was closed a number of years ago, really steep and pretty dangerous. You can see here, starting out pretty easy. It's a bit of a hard-packed clay track, but certainly in good condition. A few humps to divert the water off the side of the track so it doesn't create too much in the way of erosion. But yeah, just a nice easy way to ease into it. So this is actually the start of the bypass track proper here, I believe, and as you can see already, it's a pretty lumpy start, and certainly found out even on these early sections the IFS suspension doesn't quite have the travel that the solid rear axle of the MUX has, but we got through at least the first part here without too much in the way of difficulties. As you can see from the track, it doesn't look like it gets a lot of traffic. A little bit of a tight squeeze here past this fallen log. As always seems to be the case with four-wheel drive tracks, they're only ever cleared just enough so the vehicles can get past. And it doesn't take too long before we start to see some decent ruts. It's not probably coming up on the video particularly well, but in this section traction was still pretty good, but you can see that with a bit of rain, which fortunately we hadn't had any for a while at the time of this trip, this track could certainly get very slippery. See there, I think it'll probably come through just how deep some of those ruts are, and particularly around this next section, looking to span it rather than drop the tyres down into it, which we managed to do okay. A little bit of a wheel lift there on the front right. And you can just make out the MUX up ahead there. Sam has driven this track before a couple of times and solo in the past, and he's making pretty short work of it and making it look pretty easy. So again, a few ruts there, a bit of erosion on the track. I wasn't completely sure at this point why he chose the right-hand lane, but I think that left-hand lane is actually blocked off by that fallen tree you can see there, so we took the right-hand lane. Again, a little bit of a wheel lift there on both the front right and front left. So far so good though. We're crawling along and just making our way up over this fairly comfortably at this stage. I'm running 25 psi, and really I probably could have done with running some some slightly lower pressure. I think Sam in his muddies was running maybe 18, and yeah, you can see here had a little bit of a traction issue there, but yeah, and just going nowhere. So time to stop and have a little bit of a rethink. It's still just not getting the traction to get up and over it. So sometimes retreat is the better part of valor. So now, if memory serves me correctly, I back this off here, sort of set the vehicle up for another line, and I think this is the point where I drop the rear locker in as well. Because up to this point I was just running in low range four-wheel drive with the rear locker not engaged, and as you can see, once you drop that rear locker in, makes all the difference. So again, the IFS just clearly doesn't have the flex of a solid axle on the rear, and is struggling to keep both those rear wheels on the ground and maintain traction. So times like that, a rear locker becomes a real advantage and quite useful, especially when you don't have that solid rear axle. You can see how much the car's moving here. It was pretty lumpy. And it's not super steep, but it's just a steady, continuous climb on this track, and the fact that it is so rocky and rutted makes it certainly pretty interesting. So again, the light through the trees in particular never really sort of lets you see the contours, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of even ground through this section of the track, and you can see Sam's come back there to give me a bit of a spot, and there's a fairly decent sort of rut or erosion channel on the right hand side of this track, and I was trying to make the decision as to whether I drop down into it. Now I'm just running the factory side steps still at this stage. I don't have rock sliders or anything like that, and so I was a little bit concerned of panel damage, so I decided to try and hug that left bank and stay high and not end up down in that rut and run the risk of panel damage on the doors. As you can see, these ruts just get wider and deeper, and now we've got a decent one on the left hand side of the track there. So with the benefit of hindsight, that probably wasn't the best line, trying to go straight up the middle there, and as you can see, we've kind of got to this point and we got nowhere to go. We're just, even with the rear locker in, we're just not getting any traction. Sam's there giving me a bit of a spot, and he can see what the wheels are doing and where they are and aren't making contact with the ground, which is just that typical problem on terrain like this with your IFS vehicles. You end up with one front wheel and one rear wheel not having good contact with the ground. It's okay in the rear if you've got the diff lock, but in the front you basically end up turning into a two-wheel drive vehicle. You can see that front right wheel there is lifting up as we're trying to climb up that bank, and just don't have the drive from the rear wheels to push it up over that step. So decided, rather than give it a whole heap of right boot and risk breaking something, just better part of valor is just hook the winch up. That's what it's there for, and winch up this step. Just get up and over it and carry on with the journey. So you can see on the right hand side there how eroded this track actually is. have to come back sometime and take some footage on this track when I've got someone with me who can film from outside the car while I'm driving. I think it'd be good to see. So we ended up resetting the winch there to another tree just to pull the car straight up the track. See there, probably doing a little bit too much work with the tyres. Probably should have just let the winch do the work there, because that cable's going slack and then pulling tight again. So, but we're pretty much there now. And this next section's not a whole lot better, as you can see. We've probably got a better line, at least at this point. And looking up ahead, you can see there, really big ruts both sides of the track. And at this point, I was just crawling along, sort of trying to figure out where am I going to find a line in my IFS Pajero that's maybe going to get us up there. Pretty sure when Sam drove this in his MUX, he just put the wheels in the ruts, and in the end that's what I've sort of ended up doing. I was going to try and span it, but that just wasn't going to happen, so dropped the wheels in the ruts. And he's come back to give us a spot as well. Again, getting a bit of a wheel lift there on that front left wheel. A little bit of juice there, and we're up over that one. And now we are actually spanning the rut. So we've got the left-hand wheels up on the left bank and the right-hand wheels on that that centre raised area, which worked fine until we got up around here. So you can see the car just moved to the left then, and really ended up too far to the left, and those right hand side wheels were sliding down into that rut, particularly the back wheel, and you can see there the angle the bonnet's on, and that front left wheel is just up in the air. So again, just losing traction. Now I think you could probably drive this in an IFS vehicle. Just needs a driver with a little bit more talent than the one behind the wheel currently. So yeah, just trying to move across and get those wheels out of that deep rut, and again, another good wheel lift there. For a track that wasn't super steep, I've never had so many wheel lifts on a track. It was a fun day out this trip, actually driving stuff that's a little bit more technical than what I normally drive, because I don't normally have a spotter along. So you can see there, there's a shot of what it looked like. So you can see trying to get the vehicle just across that rut wasn't really happening. And we hooked up for another winch. Figured you'd seen enough winching action in this video, so just edited that one out. And from here, it's a pretty good run. Right through to the end of this track. If memory serves me correctly. But yeah, if you find yourself up in the Beechworth, Yakandanda area, definitely recommend take some time to explore the Stanley Forest. There's a lot of good tracks there, and some interesting sights to see as well. So yeah, they call this track the Long Tom bypass track because, as I mentioned at the start of the video, Long Tom's actually shut, has been for a number of years, and this track runs up around the side of it. So just to the left there is where the Long Tom track used to come up to. So we just pulled up here and went and had a look, but you certainly can't drive it. It's well and truly blocked off. So thanks everybody for watching, and keep an eye out for the next video from Stanley Forest. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. Thanks.